Good morning and welcome to the first of our Empower Connect series events for 2021, Empower Connect Best New Ideas. My name is Sarah Armstrong and I'll be chairing this stream today. I hope this morning's sessions will be valuable to you. Here at Empower Connect, we aim to create a meaningful opportunity for fund buyers and asset owners to learn about the best new funds out there and the portfolio managers behind them. Today we have three fund managers presenting: LFDE, La Financière de l'Échiquier, 91 and Salem Funds. I hope you can make all three presentations. As for the order of play, please do consult the schedule, which you'll find to the left of your screens. There should be time for Q&A at the end of these presentations, so please do submit your questions. On the right of the screen, you'll find Slido, and the fund manager will be more than happy to answer those questions. For more information about the fund managers presenting today, you can also check out the sponsor tab on the left. So without further ado, I'd like to present Rolando Grandi. He's a portfolio manager at LFDE, and he'll be presenting today on LFDE's global multi-thematic strategy. But before we begin, I just wanted to ask a few questions to you, Rolando, to get to know you a little bit before we launch into the presentation. So first of all, could you give us just a summary of your career to date, perhaps some of the pivotal moments that's led you to where you are now?
Of course. Hello, Sarah, and hello to everyone attending this presentation. So I say that my investment career began 8 years ago. I first started managing international funds back in 2013, and it was something I really enjoyed, be able to invest in companies all around the world and focusing on the thematics that really matter for me. So I started at a company called Primonial, and a couple of years later, maybe 3.5 years later, I joined Financière de l'Échiquier. Funny story is that Primonial, the year after I joined, acquired LFDE. So in some sort, I'm back to square one. But that's great. Both are amazing companies, and I'm truly excited about what's next. And as you mentioned, what will be like the pivotal moments of my career? I think it was in 2015 when I first launched my first international equities fund. And of course, in 2018, when I launched the first AI fund in France, which I also manage, and of course, the one I'm going to present today, which is the global multi-thematic strategy.
Yeah, you mentioned AI, so could you give us a little bit about, tell us a little bit about your investment conviction. You know, what do you believe in, and what do you think is going to be kind of pivotal now that we're entering into this post-COVID world?
Yeah, I think that for me, the most important part of investment is really to be close with companies. And for me, I'm an investor in the sense I'm looking at great companies with great people that have excellent technology and have this hunger to go get the market share, to grow the company, to reinvest and to innovate. So under that framework, I guess that my way to invest is really focused on innovation. That's why I really enjoy this global multi-thematic strategy, because it is really looking at different mega trends around the economy that are really shaping the future. And as you mentioned, we are exiting the crisis, the vaccines are being rolled out, and hopefully we will soon be all vaccinated and we can be back to the lifestyle we had before. But in that sense, I don't think we're going back. We're moving forward in terms of how the innovation is shaping the world as we go on post-COVID.
Excellent. And now just one last little thing. Are you able to give us a positive? Can you draw anything positive from this last year that we've experienced, either professionally or personally?
Yes, of course, it was a very challenging year, 2020. First of all, from managing a fund through the crisis. I mean, it was one of the worst crises we ever experienced, right? So it was something very unique. I guess that I want to share two things. One very personal that really helped me to pass through the pandemic, which was the fact that my first daughter was born exactly a year and a week ago. Thank you. So it was very good to see and to focus when I was seeing her, what the world is going to look like for her when she will get 10 years old, 20 years old, 30 years old. So I guess that really helped me not only to be more aware about the thematics we are looking at in terms of what is the world of tomorrow going to look like, but on a personal aspect also helped me to go through this pandemic. So it was very positive.
Oh, good. All right, then I'll let you get on with your presentation now. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. So let's start into the main topic of today's presentation, which is the introduction of our global multi-thematic strategy. So As I was mentioning to Sarah before, something that we really like at LFDE is to have this focus on the future. Investing, in my opinion, it's not about the past. It's not about the trajectory of the companies. It's not about what they have done. It's about what they can do. And having that in mind, we have built an investment framework which is very simple, first of all, which is very disciplined and allow us to invest with high conviction. How does it work? We focus globally. In my opinion, companies go beyond the country where they have been launched or started. Companies today have businesses all around the world. And great companies, great ideas can be found anywhere. We find them in Europe, of course. We find them in the US, in China, very innovative countries. We have a lot of companies in Japan, if you think about robotics, if you think about automation. But we have found great investments, for example, in Southeast Asia. I'm going to speak, for example, about a company that we like a lot, which is Seal Limited, which is based in Singapore and have 3 business activities all over Southeast Asia in e-commerce, payment, gaming. And that really shows you the strength of being able to invest everywhere in the world. Then our focus will be, if you ask yourself, what are the main characteristics that we are looking in our companies? It's very simple. We want them to be growth companies. That means they are benefiting from a specific trend, a specific thematic. And of course, because they are the leaders, and because that is also the second aspect of our investment philosophy, the leadership, they can grow beyond the industry. And think about it, if you are an asset allocator, if you are managing funds, it's like the beta and the alpha. We want companies who have the good beta exposure. They are exposed to the cloud. The cloud itself is growing 25% per annum. That's great. But if you are the leader in a specific aspect or area of the cloud, you're going to grow faster than that. That's the alpha. The leadership, and I think particularly in this multi-thematic next leaders approach that we have, we are not focusing about the companies that are today's leaders. That doesn't count. What counts for us and for this specific thematic is who are going to be the next leaders. If you think about the FANG, the Facebook, the Apple, the Google, the Amazon, who are going to be the same over the next 15, 20 years. And of course, if you need to have this flywheel between growth, leadership, it needs to be sustained. You need fuel, and that fuel is innovation. That is how we invest. As I mentioned, it's very simple. You have growth, you have leadership, you have innovation, and it's a really virtuous cycle. And lastly, if you have to translate that into an actual portfolio, you need high conviction investing. What does that mean for us? Is that we invest in a very limited number of companies, between 25 to 35. So you are sure that anytime you look at the fund, at the strategy, we have the best ideas in terms of the thematic, in terms of the financial, extra financial profile of the company, and the valuation, because you need to have the upside. You need to have a fair value in over 3, 5, 7 years that will make you comfortable in investing today in a company. And we are going to speak about valuation as well, because of course it's a very important topic. So this is the high level view of the strategy. I wanted to go very quickly about today's state of the world, the state of play, because we know that, for example, after the 2021 recovery year, which is just compensating the difficult 2020 annum that we had, overall the economy is unfortunately in a very lackluster growth environment. Growth is becoming scarce. You don't find it anywhere as before. For many different reasons we don't have time to discuss today, but that's the reality of our economy today. Populations in many countries are aging. If you think about Japan, but by 2050, which is not that far down the road, Japan is going to lose about 1 million people per annum, which is huge. I'm from Bolivia, and that will represent that in 10 years, starting in 2050, they are going to shrink by the equivalent size of the Bolivian population today. It's quite huge, and it is impacting the way the economy works, the way companies are developing products and services. We need to understand that deflation, and of course, right now, all the topic, and if you have any questions on that, please send them so we can answer them later. Inflation is something that everybody's speaking about, But what about the structural trend that is making inflation much more difficult to appear in our economy? So overall, if I think you know this current environment, why we think our solution can answer to this environment and what will be that answer? I think we need to focus on, as I mentioned, two things: productivity and innovation. So how do we do it? The fund, if you want to really summarize it in a single phrase, in a single line, that's the one you have. It's a multi-thematic international mid-cap equities fund. So if we split both aspects of the strategy, multi-thematic, what does that mean? It means that we look, as I mentioned before, on what are the trends, what are the structural, systematic things that are shaping the economy in terms of demographics, as I mentioned with the example of Japan. We could have spoken about Germany as well, for example. Those trends are shaping the way the economy is going to be over the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years. We have trends, and we are going to mention some of those in terms of technological innovation, digital transformation, artificial intelligence. You think about the industrial world, the manufacturing economy, you are seeing a huge wave of automation, of robotics. If you think about life science, if you think about the health, and we're going to mention some examples that we really like, every single area, I think, in the economy is being disrupted, is being renewed thanks to innovation. So that is the first focus of the strategy. Think and select the most important thematics, in our opinion, that are going to shape the future of our economy. So you can say to me, Rolando, there are other multi-thematic funds out there. What will make yours unique? The answer to that is that usually, and that is the feedback that we had from our investors, and we managed the fund because we launched it. You can look for the track record. You can find it in our website. You can find it on different websites as well that report the performance of different strategies and funds. And you can see it's a very robust one. So what will be the difference between the multi-thematic strategy that you find out elsewhere and ours? Usually what we have found is that multi-thematic funds are excellent because you really adopt those strategies. The only caveat there is that they usually invest on the same companies: Facebook, Apple, Amazon, you find Visa, MasterCard, and those are great companies. Those are amazing companies, but you already have them. So what we really wanted to provide is something that is really complementary, something that can really be next to those more larger, more established, more actual leaders by providing the future, those next leaders, that next generation of companies worldwide that are, in terms of size, and that will be the second aspect of our strategy, of our solution, are mid-cap. What are mid-caps for us? Some companies between 1 billion euros of market cap to 20 billion euros. So you might say, Rolando, 20 billion is a little bit large, especially in Europe. But if you think globally, in the US, in Asia as well, a company between 15 and 20 billion euros of market cap it's very different for a company with 100, with 200, with 500, with $2 trillion of market cap. So that will be the sweet spot for ourselves. Very liquid companies, but not those huge companies for whom the revenue base is very difficult to move significantly higher. Our companies, if you look at the overall portfolio today, are generating about 30 to 35% revenue growth over the next 3 years per annum. So that's very interesting. So if you look at about the companies that we have, I think that really represents what we do: multi-thematic and international mid-cap equities. So let's deep dive a little bit on the different thematics that we have. First of all, the thematics I'm going to present are not exclusive. We have other ones. And the idea is that the fund is very dynamic. It is adapting to the way the economy evolves. Of course, we are not changing thematics every day, because those are very established thematics. But over the course of a year, or over 3 years, you're going to see some different thematics appearing, disappearing, and that is how we manage the fund, which is very exciting, I guess, for an investors, because you know that anytime, any point of time, you have a team of people, of fund managers, of analysts at LFDE, working on what are going to be those thematics of the future. And once we identify the companies that really suit our discipline in terms of financial, extra financial, so ESG analysis and valuation, you will find them in the portfolio. So let's quickly look at the different thematics that we have selected for today's presentation. First of all, we have the new lifestyle thematic. I think this is something that you can find on the millennials or Generation Z kind of thematics, but not only. We also focus, for example, in urbanization, which you might say, but Rolando, today in developed countries, urbanization is already at its maximum. Today, you're even seeing, I'm based in Paris, you're seeing moving away from big cities and going back to the rural areas. Yes, but if you think about, for example, Asia or Latin America, when urbanization rates, think about China, still 65, 70% versus 80, 85 for developed countries. Moving that way from 70 to 80%, it's huge when you're thinking about a country of 1.5 billion people. So this is really shaping different economies. So we have a company there, which is called Yihai, which who develops one of the most famous Chinese meals, which is the hot pot. They have thrived during COVID because they had these do-it-yourself boxes that you can buy and eat very simply without going outside. So they're really an interesting company benefiting from this shift in mentality, this shift in behavior. So for us, a very interesting example there in lifestyles. Of course, you're going to find thematics like robotics and automation, because we are going to get back to full employment in several countries. As first of all, people are aging. Second of all, there is incremental demand for people in areas like software, like cloud, like big data, AI. We are having new areas of the economy who are generating a lot of employment, but you need on the manufacturing side to bring productivity, to automate. We have an amazing company in the UK, you may know it, Ocado. It is really disrupting, I guess, how the fulfillment for grocery companies and distribution companies is evolving. They have a very unique technology to handle this type of product, and they're exporting that worldwide. So we are very enthusiastic about the capabilities this company can bring, and really shows you this double approach. Identify the strong thematics that are shaping the future, and look who are the key companies that are driving this thematic forward. And if you look, for example, about e-commerce, something that if you tell me, Rolando, who is the biggest winner of the COVID crisis, e-commerce. So the biggest acceleration in terms of penetration, of adoption in all its history. Before the pandemic, we were about 10% of penetration as a percentage of total retail sales, physical and online. And that took, more than 20 years to get from 0 to year, and especially early half of the year, we went from 10 to 20% worldwide. It's huge, but that tells you that we are only at 20%. I'm not telling you it's going to go to 100. There are going to be a point of balance between physical and online e-commerce. Companies are working towards omni-channel. That being said, what we focus on is this e-commerce opportunity, which is still in the early innings. And if you look at at financial disruption, it's very interesting what is happening in insurance, in the banking. You have a lot of companies in payments who are evolving beyond just providing a new digital wallet, for example. You have companies like Afterpay in Australia. You have companies like Affirm in the US, both of them who are in our strategy and are really disrupting how the new generation, the millennials, the Gen Z, are buying without using a credit card, for example, using debit card and getting funding instantly by these companies. It's really amazing what they are doing. And of course, we also have other types of investments, like I mentioned, healthcare. We're extremely bullish on the different opportunities we can find on the healthcare space, because as the COVID crisis showed, this is an area where we need to invest significantly. We are seeing innovation in gene sequencing, for example. So we had a company like Illumina, which has grown too big for the strategy. So we sold it because we managed the overall size of the companies in the portfolio. But thanks to Illumina, which has allowed to have a cost-effective way to sequence the genome, we are now going into gene editing, into different approaches of therapy that can really cure people. It's not just helping them, it's really curing the disease. So it's extremely interesting what is happening there. We are also focusing on the service side of healthcare. So think about remote medicine. We have companies like Teladoc in the US. We have companies like Ping An Healthcare in China, whose AI doctor, because we have an AI doctor, which is kind of amazing, are doing almost 1 million consultations per day. So think about how over the next year, 2 years, 5 years, this single brain, this single AI is getting better by the day. No physician in the world today can do 1 million consultations over a day. Not of if you think about a year, if you think about their lifetime, it's very impressive. So we also have the technological thematics, for example, like cybersecurity, like AI, like cloud, because we really think that the digital transformation of the economy is really happening, it's accelerating, and the opportunity is huge. If you heard, for example, Bill McDermott, who is the CEO of ServiceNow, he said, for example, that by 2024, digital transformation spending is going to grow to $2.4 trillion. So that's huge. So I think it's equivalent to the GDP of France. So over a single year in 2024, companies are going to invest the equivalent of France's GDP to accelerate their digital transformation. So the opportunity is huge, and we are focusing on cybersecurity, AI, the cloud, and we have new themes like renewable energies that we introduced last year. We have the gaming thematic, for example, and that is how we work. So very quickly, because I really want to answer your questions, so please send the questions through the chat. We're going to answer them to also see what you want to understand better about this strategy. Quickly, and you're going to receive the presentation. Our investment process is very well defined, very structured, very disciplined. On a high level view, we screen the companies for their different qualitative aspects. First of all, size, expected growth, and the thematics behind these companies. We then do the financial, extra financial analysis. So very important to have already a 360 degrees of the company. And then you have the portfolio construction, doing the evaluation of these companies, keeping your best ideas, 25 to 35 companies, those who have the upside to get you to this performance that we have been delivering over the past 8 years now. So just to conclude on the presentation and to move to the Q&A, I'm extremely enthusiastic about what's next. As I mentioned, it's not what has happened in the past, it's not what is happening today. All that counts, if you have a long-term horizon, it's about what is going to happen next. Who are and which are these centers of gravity that are really pulling the demand, pulling investments towards them? You think about digital transformation with the cloud, with artificial intelligence. If you think about this new generation of consumers, of investors, of workers, if you think about the need to solve some of the challenges that we have in today's economy, in healthcare, if you think about productivity in manufacturing, those are the main areas where investments are going, where companies are developing new types of solutions. And what we want with this strategy is really to be able to focus on the world of tomorrow, to identify the leaders who today are doing the investments, are developing the technology in a possible way to deliver that future, which can only be a promise unless they do it, and we have the trust they will do it. So we think we have a very unique strategy. If you go look at the different ratings that we have, the strategy is doing very well. It's #1 in its Morningstar category. So very happy about what's next, and very happy to take your questions now.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We do have a few questions. First and foremost, what are the liquidity constraints of the fund? Is there a target AUM size that you think will limit the ability to further grow the fund?
Thank you, Sarah, for the question. So if we think about the liquidity constraints, the good news is that the fund is extremely liquid. We focus, as I mentioned, on companies that start at 1 billion euros of market cap and go as high usually as 20 billion. So those are very liquid companies itself per se. So if you look at the liquidity constraints, and that will be like the target AUM for the strategy, It's about 5 billion euros. So today we have 500 million on the strategy, which we started commercializing a year ago. So we grew 100x over the past year. Today, the strategy is growing very rapidly. So we are working towards that 5 billion goal. So there is time to invest, there's capacity to receive those investments, and the opportunity, as I mentioned, is quite enthusiastic.
Lovely, great, that's fabulous. Just one more. We've got a couple more coming. What are the risks and opportunities in 2021 for the strategy?
So in terms of risk and opportunities, I think one which is a little bit a two-sided risk and opportunity is innovation. Innovation is extremely good if you are the leader. If you not only developing the technology is good enough, you need to sell the technology, you need people to adopt it and create these network effects. We speak a lot about network effects in social networks, but usually you have that in all areas of the economy. If you think about, for example, cybersecurity, on which companies like Zscaler, which we have in the strategy, are really getting new customers every day and training their artificial intelligence every time to develop better technology. So innovation is a really good advantage if you have the technology and you sell it. But what happens if you get disrupted by another company? So I think that the main risk, and that is why you have an active team looking at these companies, is trying to identify what are those next generation technologies that might appear. Can your company be disrupted? Is your company investing enough to sustain that innovation, to sustain that leadership? So that is how we view it in terms of risk and opportunities going forward.
How do you reconcile investment market and thematic time horizons? Which are all different? Themes are built into today's valuations and today's market time horizon. So how do you buy on a thematic time horizon?
Yes, I think that's a very interesting question because there are several answers to provide to that question. So first of all is the timing, and the timing really depends on the maturity of the technology, because you can be correct, but if you're too early, you might not necessarily have a good investment. So that is why we are not only looking at how the technology is being enabled by an ecosystem in terms of adoption, in terms of maturity, but we also identify the investment opportunity. So we are looking at different technologies, like, for example, quantum computing. Quantum computing is extremely exciting, but today you don't really have great companies that are mature enough, in our opinion, or pure enough to be an investment opportunity into the fund. Should that happen over the next year, the next 2 years, we will find them, we will invest in them, and we will join them on this quantum adventure. So I guess that in terms of timing, you need to trust what we do, and we try to be in the good place at the good time. So I guess that's how we manage that situation.
Yeah. And last not least, I've got one here. How did the fund perform during the March market crash?
Yeah, so what we are very excited about this strategy is that it not only provides very high returns during good times, but also during bad times. The fund has shown during its track record period extremely high resilience. So for example, during the March downturn, it dropped, of course, like everything else, but at a much lower magnitude, like 5 to 7 percentage points better than the index. And it bounced back more than 100% since then, whereas the benchmark bounced back like 60% from that point of time. So very resilient, very robust strategy, I think, and 2020 really showed you that.
Lovely, great. Thank you very much, Rolando.